Is it true? Are you and my brother really having a child?
Yeah, I just went to the doctor. They said that I'm 2 months pregnant.
You're such an idiot! How could you have let this happen?
Is that the right way to react to hearing that your sister-in-law is having a baby? Like, why would you react like that? Most people have said congratulations.
I don't want to have the word sister associated with our relationship right now. Just thinking about it makes me sick to my stomach.
Have I done something to offend you?
I can't believe that you got pregnant on the year that I turned 30. Have you no shame? This should be my year. Thanks to you, now all I'm going to hear from everybody around me is that I've got to hurry up and have a child of my own. It's going to be such a pain.
I'm sorry to hear that. I wasn't aware you were worried about that kind of thing.
I don't need your apologies. Just don't have the kid.
I'm sorry. What are you asking me to do exactly?
Go back to the hospital again.
And do what? What are you trying to say?
If you're only 2 months pregnant, you've still got time, right?
Really? Are you really going to ask me to do that? There's no way I could do something like that.
If you really felt bad about what you've done to me, then you should be able to do at least that much for me. You're still plenty young, so it shouldn't be an issue for you. At your age, you can still wait until I get married to have a kid, yeah?
Are you out of your mind? There's a new life inside of me right now, though. How could I do that to the poor child? Are you going to say that I should end its life before it even begins just because you're worried your family is going to pressure you about not having a kid yet?
Yes, you should show respect to your older siblings even if I'm just your in-law. Oh, I completely forgot. You were raised by a single mother, weren't you?
What does that have to do with anything?
That's why you have no sense. You were raised in a broken home.
I wasn't from a broken home.
But your mother did raise you by herself, right?
That is true. But that doesn't mean that I'm from a broken home. There's no way I would describe my situation that way.
Then where is your father now? Do you even know who he is?
Well, it's complicated.
As I thought, you don't even know him, do you? He ran out on your mom the second that he found out she was going to have a child. Isn't that right?
You're wrong. My father died.
On top of abandoning his child and lover, he died? He must have been quite a bad man. Am I wrong?
You don't know anything. You're completely off base. More importantly, don't mock my parents.
What makes you think that you can boss me around, huh? Maybe I should let the staff at my father's company know about this.
Why would you bring up your father's company?
Just try to think about it real hard. I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out. Arthur is going to inherit the family company someday. You knew that, right? It wouldn't look good if it got out that the president's mother-in-law had loose legs. Do you catch my drift?
Are you talking about my mother? She isn't like that. Stop bad-mouthing her. Please just cut this all out already. If you insist on saying such cruel things to me, it's not going to go well for you. I'll bring it up to your parents. I'll tell them all the nasty things you've been saying to me. Just make sure you understand that.
You'll bring it up to my parents? What are you, some sort of tattletale? Do you think that my parents are going to take your side? You've got to be joking. My parents have been hesitant about you getting together with Arthur from the outset. Do you know why? Because you're from a single-family home. They were worried that your mother would be hard up on money. They were worried that she'd try to siphon off some from the family fortune. I mean, to have their son marry somebody raised in such lowly conditions? Isn't it natural to think that you were trying to just use my little brother for everything he was worth?
I've never thought anything of the sort. Did your parents really say that? It doesn't sound like something they would say.
They didn't necessarily put it into words like that, but it was clear from the way they acted. I could tell just by looking at them how they felt. There's no way that my parents would ever take your side on anything. There's also no way that they'd want a grandchild birthed by you. Now that you understand that, you should get right to the hospital and get rid of that fetus before you entrap my family with it.
I will do no such thing.
I give you 1 month to deal with it before I take matters into my own hands. If you don't get that fetus dealt with, well, I'll just run you right out of town. You'll end up a single mother just like your own mother. Alright, time's up. I've just sent out an email informing everyone at my father's company about your background.
I know. I saw it. It was a mix of things that were true and things that were not. Although I'd say it was more fabricated than not. You didn't strain yourself too hard doing any research, did you?
I think it'd be best to say that it was based on a true story.
Katrina, don't you work at a different company, though? How did you get the email addresses of the entire staff?
That was a piece of cake. I just used my dad's computer to get them all.
You just let yourself on your dad's computer to get that sort of private information?
I guess your only option at this point is going to be to get a divorce. Serves you right.
Oh, I see. Well, I guess that settles it. I'm going to have to rescind that job offer.
Huh? Job offer? What job offer?
Weren't you recently offered a permanent position at the place you're working?
Yeah, so? What are you trying to get at? You do know that I'm working in a lab, right? It does business with my family's company. Why would you getting chased out of our family lead to me losing my job offer? Is that what is supposed to pass as a threat from you? Because it doesn't make any sense.
The thing is, the lead scientist at the lab you're working at is my grandfather.
Oh, really? So you're trying to tell me that you're the granddaughter of Christoph Green?
That's right. I guess you didn't realize my maiden name was Green?
Is that true?
Yeah, of course. Anyway, you were only able to get various part-time jobs after you graduated from college, right, Katrina? How did you think you were able to get into a large laboratory all of a sudden?
That's obviously through the connections that my parents had.
Did you think that just because your family's company did business with that laboratory that you'd easily get a job at a lab that big? Do you understand that a lab that large wouldn't fall sway to the desires of one of their clients?
Yeah, but that's because I've got skills and talent as well.
You do know that your resume was covered in typos, right?
Why would you know that?
Because my parents showed it to me. I was the connection that got you the job. Your parents told me that you'd never be able to get anywhere with the resume you gave them. You had prior experience working at their company, but that job would have been with your family's company, so it wouldn't count for much. When looking over your resume, it might just seem like a nepotistic hiring and people would worry about how much actual work you did. So they asked me to help you get in so you could learn about the realities of the working world. As a result of their request, I fixed your typo-ridden resume before it was sent off. I also strongly advocated for you at my grandfather's laboratory.
Aha! I caught you in a lie.
Where have I lied?
You said that you were the granddaughter of the director of the laboratory, right? That's a lie. And the reason I know it has to be a lie is because Dr. Green doesn't have any children. In other words, the current head of the laboratory has no blood relatives. Owned with facts and logic. Do a little research before you try and come at me with such bold-faced lies.
Didn't I tell you about that before? My father has already passed. He's in a better place now. There was a very unfortunate accident right after my parents got married.
Right after they were married? So that means your mom was already pregnant?
Yes, that would appear to be the case. Anyway, the fact is that the lab director did have one son, my father. Therefore, the laboratory director is my grandfather.
So your mother forced a shotgun wedding because she got knocked up with you?
No, not at all. Not that it matters or is any business of yours whatsoever, but they were already engaged to be married when I was conceived. But it was a long engagement, and it looked like I would probably be born before the actual wedding. That's when my father decided to file the marriage documents early just to make things at the hospital smoother in case there were any complications. It was actually when he was returning home from that very trip that he died. He was hit by a drunk driver who ignored a red light, and my father never got to return home. Well, that might seem like a rushed wedding, but I don't know if I'd characterize the situation the way that you have been. My parents are nothing like how you've imagined them, Katrina. It's nothing like the biased narrative you've told yourself. If you still doubt what I've told you, shall I contact my grandfather, the director of the laboratory, to confirm it for you?
That can't be true. You're really a blood relative to the laboratory director?
Yes, but that's not all. My mother is the head of the accounting department for that laboratory. After she lost my father, my grandfather offered to support her financially, but she was never the type to take handouts. She was only interested in taking the minimum support that would prove absolutely necessary. She was determined to act as a positive role model for me. In order to do so, she studied hard and acquired her accounting certification. She worked so hard to be a good role model. I will not forgive you for mocking my mother, especially after all the hard work she put in.
Let's step back for a second. What do you intend on doing now?
I wasn't really planning on doing anything as long as you didn't do anything, Katrina. But given your steadfast pursuit of your idiotic goal of shaming me into getting an abortion just because you don't want to look bad, you've kind of forced my hand. You crossed the line when you brought other people into this. I didn't want to do something like this, but at this point, I see no other option. My patience for dealing with your nonsense has reached its limit. A little while ago, I forwarded all of our messages to both my grandfather and my mother.
You're kidding me! You sent this chat log to your mother and grandfather? To the laboratory director? From what part?
The whole thing. Even the part where you treated me like somebody that was lacking common sense. And the fact that you told me to abort my unborn child. And the fact that you've been mocking my mother and father. And the fact that you've unveiled my so-called dirty secrets to all the staff working at your family's company. I've sent them every last piece of information.
If you've shown them all of that, won't I end up getting fired?
Both my mother and grandfather are fuming with rage, so I'd expect as much.
You awful woman! How could you do this to me? Fine, I don't care. I'll just go back to my family's company. I'll be the one to inherit the company presidency now. You might as well just start packing your bags because you're out of there as soon as I've become company president.
You really know nothing of how the world works, do you, Katrina? It's kind of sad how much you belittle other people considering your actual position.
What are you trying to say?
Just try to think about it for a bit. I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out eventually. Which do you think is the buyer in the relationship between your family's company and my grandfather's laboratory? The group that will be in trouble if trade ends up being cut off is your family's company, not my grandfather's laboratory.
That can't be!
Moreover, I think the thing that will really give your parents pause is that I've already talked to them about my intentions to someday manage my grandfather's laboratory. That will lead to 3 generations of damaged business relations. Do you think your parents are going to value your selfishness over the well-being of their own company?
Really? Why would you do that? Because you're the director's granddaughter?
Well, I can't deny that is probably a factor. But I actually work in the development portion of my grandfather's laboratory. And I do quite well, I might add. I like to think I would be able to take over even if we weren't related.
That has to be a lie. I've never seen you there.
That's because I've been working at home ever since I married your brother. I also never go to the office anymore these days. But even now, I'm still working on the payroll, although I'll be taking some time off to have the baby, of course.
If what you say is true, and you are a member of the development department, wouldn't that make you part of the highest levels of staff?
Yes. I went to university to study to get a position that would set me up to take after my grandfather once he had retired. After I've given birth and my child is old enough for daycare, I will return to my grandfather's laboratory's development department. When I communicated that to your parents, they felt a little reticent. That was the coldness I think you observed. I mean, the fact that I was the granddaughter of the head of such a famous laboratory, well, it must have given them quite the shock. Well, it's not that I don't understand how they feel. I am the granddaughter of one of their biggest buyers. I told them to not worry about that, and that I just wanted them to treat me like anybody else. But it seems that it has caused quite the big misunderstanding for you, huh, Katrina?
Why did my parents keep something that important from me?
I was concerned about what you'd do with that information. If you knew that I was the granddaughter of such a world-famous laboratory, there is no telling what sort of requests you would have come up with. That's why I requested that they keep this information from you.
If I would have known, I would have been able to act more appropriately, though.
Yes, exactly. If you had known, you would have treated me differently, and I never would have been able to find out exactly what kind of person you are.
But I understand now. Isn't that right, Julia?
What is with this sudden change in tone? It's weird.
I'm really sorry for everything I've said and done up until now, okay? It looks like I was really mistaken about a whole lot of different things. Let's try to get along well from now on as sisters. We're in-laws, after all. This is a little fast, but do you think you could get me transferred to the development department at your grandfather's lab? I want to be on the same team as you. That way we can start growing closer as sisters. Moreover, maybe your grandfather's laboratory should invest in my family's company. I hope both of our organizations can grow in scale. It would be a win-win for everybody. We'd all be so happy.
Huh? Do you think I have the memory of a goldfish? Did you really think you could just try a sudden about-face and then actually try to ask me to put in a good word for you? Or have you become a brand new life form in an attempt to wipe away the inconvenient situation you've built for yourself? You have mercilessly torn myself and my relatives to shreds over your misconceptions. And do you think you can be forgiven with a simple apology? More than that, you think you can profit from your newfound knowledge? I can't believe you can say such heavy-handed nonsense. You won't fool anybody with that shoddy wool, you wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Just like I told you. That was just a mistake on my part. I didn't know any better.
My mother and grandfather couldn't be more angry.
Won't you smooth that over for me, sis? I believe that you can do it, Julia. You are amazing, after all. You can do it if you try.
I will not even try. Moreover, the only people you need to be trying to smooth things over with are your own parents. You understand that, right?
Huh? What do you mean by that? Why would I need to smooth things over with my parents?
Your father and mother just read your bomb-dropping email just a little while ago. I heard them screaming about disowning you for sending such a thing, using information you shouldn't have had access to. They screamed so loud it would put Metallica to shame.
They're going to disown me? Why would they do that? I'm their darling daughter. They love me.
Let me give you some choice quotes. Is that something an adult would do? She's already 30! I thought we had done everything we could to teach her manners, but she's never learned a thing. We even asked Julia to help her get that job. Where does she get off treating her savior like this? We won't forgive her. She can go try to live on her own from now on. Something like that.
No, this can't be.
I don't think there's much hope of you getting rehired at your family's company.
Don't speak of this as though you have nothing to do with it.
If you've been disowned by your parents, I guess there's no point in considering any familiar relationship between us. You'll be a complete stranger, won't you?
Look, I'm begging you. Help me. I actually am sorry. I'll do anything, even the most menial of tasks. I'm begging, so can't you find a way for me to stay working at your grandfather's laboratory? I don't have any savings, and I won't be able to survive if my parents actually chase me out of the house.
Didn't you just refer to yourself as their darling daughter? Why don't you go try to calm your parents down yourself? I believe you can do it, sister. However, Katrina's efforts were wasted, and her parents did indeed chase her out of her family's home. She had neither job nor house. After this whole thing went down, my mother told me a bit about Katrina's performance during her short time at the lab. Katrina had apparently not only been unable to do any of the work that was assigned to her, but she was also always showing up to work late or not at all. Even if I hadn't forwarded anything that she had said to me, she would probably have only lasted maybe a couple more months before getting fired for incompetence, whether she was my sister-in-law or not. I heard that she's been bouncing around between different friends' houses while doing odd jobs here and there to scrounge up money. I guess she must have finally learned the realities of the working world and what life in society is really like. As far as the email that she sent goes out, my father-in-law spoke to all of the staff to clear that situation up. So, in the end, nothing really came of it. Well, everybody learned how stupid Katrina was, so I guess something did come out of it. Sending an email with such personal contents to everybody was certainly a foolish thing. More than anyone else involved, it merely reflected the lack of professionalism of the person who sent it. After several months, I safely gave birth to a baby boy. We lived happily ever after, surrounded by my mother, my grandfather, and my in-laws, Katrina excluded.